Here you go.
Historic. That's the nothing personal word of the day. It's Monday, June 2424. Is there any word that is more overused in the world of sports than historic? You're going to see history tonight in the Stanley Cup, either way, which means it's historic. Some people will say it's historical. No, that's the wrong way to say it. It's historic. The Panthers could win their first ever Stanley Cup tonight. 30 years. They haven't been around that long. As a matter of fact, this is around when they should be winning their first Stanley Cup. If you think about the number of teams in the NHL and the number of years they've been around, this mathematically makes quite a bit of sense. The Edmonton Oilers haven't won a cup since 1990, so that's about 34 years. I would say it's about time for them to win a cup too, mathematically. So that's not so historic. No team has come back from down 0-3 since the Toronto Maple Leafs in 1942. That seems about right in the Stanley Cup round. That would be history if they can come all the way back. Was anyone watching Game 6 Friday night? Raise your hand. I was. Game 6 of the Stanley Cup. That was the third chance the Panthers had to win one game. Tonight's their fourth chance to win one game. For the Panther fans out there despondent beyond repair, they had 4 chances to win one. They still have 25% of their chances left to win that one game. Not the end of the world. It's like people at a baseball game. Have you ever been to a baseball game and your team is down in the 7th inning and you're thinking about leaving? You're like, oh, it's over. And there's a third of a game left. If you have not hit in the 7th inning, you've got a third of a game to get some runs back. It's a lot. So the Panthers are down to a quarter of a game. It's like the 8th inning. You never seen an 8th inning comeback? Can you imagine having like an 8-run 8th to win a game? It can happen to you, Bridget. So I'm watching Game 6, and I'm thinking to myself, what's going to happen here? How's this going to work with Greg Cody? How's it going to work with LeBatard and Mike Ryan? How's it going to work with Paul Maurice? How's it going to work with Connor McDavid? And then I realized something that I wanted to talk about this morning, about these series. There's going to be so much talk that the Panthers won 3 in a row. Now Edmonton's got all the momentum. They've won 3 in a row. Inside a clubhouse, inside a locker room, none of this comes up. It's all media driven. It is all fan driven. The front office, the Panthers front office as an example, the president of the team right now, even Paul Maurice, doesn't feel the least bit different about Game 7 as he did about Game 4, as he does about Game 5 or Game 6. It feels like we should feel differently because as fans, it feels so different, where you just get much tighter. You're like, you can't shine a flashlight through that. That's a Let It Ride reference, folks. But when you're actually working for the team or playing for the team, the routine today, it's the routine of yesterday, the routine of the day before, the routine of Game 5, the routine of Game 1, the routine of the first round, the routine of Game 13 of the regular season. That may sound crazy, but in the clubhouse prior to a game, whether it's a World Series clinching game, whether it's a random Wednesday in July, the players who eat chicken, the players who shower after BP and before the game, shower after BP and before the game. The players who don't. The only routine difference is the amount of media you have to do before a game during the in-between days when there aren't games. But that's all done with your head of PR. It's all scheduled, coordinated, and it becomes part of the routine for that moment, that day. So we're walking around excited about a Game 7. During Game 6, it's all you're rooting for. If you are a sports fan, you want Game 7. The debate notwithstanding inside the LeBatard universe, there is no question of this. If the Panthers win tonight, no one will remember 3-0, 0-3, win Game 7, you win the cup. when you're having the parade, when you're looking back, when you're telling your kids, your grandkids, when the franchise is honoring in 2044, when they bring back all the players to celebrate 20th anniversary of the first Stanley Cup win. There's no asterisk saying, oh, they were up 3 and they had to win it in 7 games. It's a footnote. If the Oilers win, it always is a part of the 2024 Stanley Cup. That's the part that is not even and bothers me a tiny bit. If the Oilers come back to win, whenever this Stanley Cup is talked about, it will be talked about. That's the team that came back from 0-3 to win the Stanley Cup. It's only happened twice, in 1942 and 2024. The Panthers winning, the Panthers won the Cup in 2024. The pressure of playing for legacy? No. The difference in winning in 4 and 7? No. All the things that you think would be worrying a player or that a player's thinking about because you're thinking about it as a fan, they're not thinking about at all. They're going to do a pregame skate today. It's just a regular pregame skate. But everyone's going to be reading into things. Where's Bobrovsky? I saw that yesterday. Coco Bobrovsky didn't show up somewhere, didn't do something. What's going on? Is he okay? Is he despondent? The likelihood is he had it like an event with one of his kids or something. I don't know if he has kids, but we always make something in the absence of real information. We make it to be something that fits the narrative of what we're thinking about, even though what's actually happening has nothing to do with anything that we're thinking about. One more thing about the Greg Cody, McDavid, McOverrated. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then you've been living under a sports rock. Greg Cody is a columnist for the Miami Herald, a frequent contributor, weekly contributor to LeBatard, friend of Dan's for decades, called Connor McDavid overrated. And there is a bit going on where everyone is blaming Greg Cody if the Panthers lose the Stanley Cup. And Greg Cody then did a bit where he said, blame me. How could you blame me? I wrote a column. Who cares? Then Connor McDavid read that. The father said to the son, Connor, you better play well because you're being looked at as overrated. Adding bulletin board material, fuel to the fire. It's all total horse hockey. And I'm not saying that fans don't have the right to view Greg the way they view him or to be upset with Greg if the Panthers lose. It's the same right you have to be irrationally upset at the printers of a lottery card because you don't choose the right numbers. You may be upset at the result, and you may feel you have to blame someone. The way to look at it, if you're a fan of the Panthers upset with Greg, you're acting just like a petulant, emotional owner who has to blame somebody when something goes wrong, so you fire the manager. That's a funny one. Blame somebody. You can't blame yourself. 9 o'clock live will be the LeBatard Show today. If you're watching us on DraftKings Network, then it's coming up right after the show. At 11 a.m., you can watch the LeBatard Show. I can promise you there will be plenty of Panthers talk, plenty of Panthers fans who are worried, and you ought to be embracing it. I was telling my son, Coco, yesterday. It was his birthday, and we were talking about the Panthers, and we were talking about Game 7s. In the history of South Florida, this is the third home Game 7 in a championship round. And I think I have it right. The Marlins in 97 beat the Len Cleveland Indians. Then you had the Heat beat the Spurs in 2013 in a Game 7. And now we're 2024 where the Panthers are playing a home Game 7. It's so rare that you have to love it. You have to embrace how you feel today, the excitement of how you feel. We will be covering what happens in tomorrow's show. I promise you that. While we're on our way to St. Louis, live show in St. Louis tomorrow night. DavidSamsonPodcast.com for information. If you are in the St. Louis area or anywhere near the St. Louis area, City Winery, 7:30 a.m. 7:30, 4, 8, 6, 9. Let's get this promo right. Nothing Personal live with David Samson tomorrow, 7:30 p.m. Central in St. Louis at the City Winery. Come join us. It's going to be fun. There's a lot of St. Louis sports to talk about. I'll tell you that. The rundown is full of it. Wait till you hear what movie, how we're going to do the reviews. St. Louis, not necessarily a hotbed of Hollywood. That said, hope you join us. Today at 1:30 Pacific, there will be a press conference. You will have Rob Pelinka at the dais. You will have JJ Redick. I do not believe Jeannie Buss will be there, but we'll wait to see. Has it been announced who's going to present JJ Redick as the new head coach of the Lakers? Did you think that just because we had to sit down with Mike Ryan on Friday, thank you so much for downloading and listening and watching that, but did you think we weren't going to cover the JJ Redick situation? The new coach of the Lakers being introduced today? For the avoidance of doubt, I don't see a need to qualify this statement. I don't see a need to in any way be anything but crystal clear. I will look right at you and say, Rich Paul, LeBron James, I'm not listening to what you're saying, and I'm not buying what you're selling. If anyone out there thinks JJ Redick is the coach of the Lakers because Rob Pelinka and Jeannie Buss believe that he is the best man to be the coach of this team at this particular time, with no regard to what LeBron James thinks, feels, wants, or desires, then you are living under a very large, I'm talking like huge rock. Rich Paul and LeBron are going to go out of their way to make sure that you all know today that they had nothing to do, no influence. It had nothing to do with LeBron's relationship. The podcast, don't be ridiculous. Just because LeBron and JJ do a podcast has nothing to do with JJ Redick being the head coach of the Lakers. That's crazy talk. That's what they're going to have you believe. Well, I'd like you to believe something else. I'd like you to believe the way it actually happened, which is LeBron James was a complete part of the process, that Dan Hurley was a nothing burger from the start. Oh, I spoke to LeBron. Dan said, and LeBron, it was good. He said, I will support you as coach. Horse hockey. JJ Redick was going to be the coach of the Lakers from the start. We had it as a wait to see. Way before Hurley was even rumored. Sorry, Woj, we had it. JJ Redick will be hired as coach of the Lakers. Ovs. I'm not critiquing LeBron wanting to have that influence and having that influence and exerting that influence. How about just wearing that influence? You embarrassed? You worried it's not going to work out? I got news for you. Everything that LeBron's done to build his team and try to help the Lakers win has not worked out short of the COVID bubble championship. They have not been a wholly productive, successful team. And this is with LeBron to this day being one of the top 10 players in the NBA. And in theory, AD being also. In theory. I can't wait for the press conference. I don't know that I'm going to fully focus on it because I'll be getting ready for Game 7. I'll be stretching, maybe going for a skate prior to the game. But I'll tell you, they're going to do contortions. I'm talking like Flying Wallenda type stuff. Cirque du Soleil, holy cow, that guy's got a strong upper body type contortions. To make sure that you all are convinced that this was a legitimate hiring process, that it's just a coinkydink that LeBron and JJ know each other. I wonder if it's in the contract, 4869. I wonder whether it's in the contract that JJ and LeBron can't keep doing their podcast. No. I wonder whether he's got a 4-year deal worth more than Steve Nash and less than Tyronn Lue. That's another wait to see that we're waiting for. I'm wondering whether it's going to make a difference for the Lakers roster to have JJ Redick as head coach. I wonder whether JJ Redick knows that they're getting Bronny. You know what would be amazing? I was just thinking, it's not going to happen, but Coca, how about this one? Try this one on. Rich Paul and LeBron so badly want you to know that they had nothing to do with the JJ Redick hire, that they're going to, as a free agent, sign with someone else. I don't know what you were all talking about. I told you I had nothing to do with it. I didn't even want the guy as my coach. So much so, heck with LA and heck with all my movie projects. I'm going to blank. Go ahead and dream, Phoenix, and maybe you'll just go to the Clippers. Then you don't have to move. That'd be cool. Well, we'll see what the press conference leads to. But believe me, there's practicing. There's message points. They're going over it. You can bet your bippy on that. I wonder what ESPN is thinking. I really do. It's so good. I shouldn't talk about ESPN, Coca. I really want to, though. Okay, I will. Jeff Van Gundy, Mark Jackson. See you later. As their number one analyst team, bring in Doris Burke and Doc Rivers. Doc Rivers leaves to become head coach. Bring in JJ Redick. JJ Redick leaves to be head coach. ESPN lies to you saying, oh, that was the reason we didn't want Jeff Van Gundy. I wonder who they'll bring in now. If I am a wannabe coach, I want to be a top analyst at ESPN because apparently that's where you get your coaches from. I wonder if he'll sit there. He's going to look very dapper. JJ's a dapper guy. He's going to sit there. I think they'll have him in the middle. I think it'll just be him and Pelinka. I don't think Jeannie needs to be there. I don't think she wants to be there. I think you sit there. So there's no middle if there's two people. Sorry, Coco, one more thing on this. I just thought of this during the press conference. JJ's sitting there, and they're going to try so hard in their statements to address the questions that they know are coming that it wouldn't shock me if in the direct statements they talk about the process, they talk about JJ Redick, they talk about, they'll infer Hurley for sure, but without mentioning his name. They'll talk about the relationship between LeBron and JJ. All of these things are going to come up, trying somehow to take away the sting of the media questions after. But of course, the media after will still ask the questions. Can't wait. 4:30 Eastern. JJ Redick, your new head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers in the world's worst kept secret of all time. Congratulations, Connecticut. You just got completely screwed. So good. Injuries stink. I'm not the president of the Marlins anymore. I've been gone since 2017. One thing I don't miss, I miss camaraderie. I miss the guys. I miss what it is to see people without effort, like anybody does at their work. When you no longer work for a place you've worked for, 18 years, there's just an ease. It doesn't take an effort to spend all day with people. You're with them. Baseball is like any job where you're working. If you're into it, you're working your ass off, and you're 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They say that, but if you don't sleep a lot, it happens to be true, and things happen all through the night, Cyndi Lauper, and I miss it. What I don't miss is every time I open the paper, that's an old expression. What I don't miss is every time I open my phone and I do the facelift, and then I see another injury. The Marlins starting rotation is all injured. And I don't mean that as hyperbole. I mean that literally. And people overuse the word literal, but I shan't. All 5 starters are hurt. And a 6th one, just for S's and G's. Just yesterday, Jesus Luzardo and Braxton Garrett, on consecutive days, the last 2 days, they were put on the injured list. I wanted to give you some insight into the front office here. They had Skip Schumacher give a good quote. Just another hit to our pitching staff. It's kind of crazy right now. But then went on to say, hey, we're a major league team. We'll start a major league player. That's what major league teams do. You may wonder whether a front office gives up on a team when there are injuries. At what point is that inflection point where you can withstand a couple injuries and then you can't? It's not related at all. what teams are looking at and they protest and say they don't pay attention to, but what they're really only looking at are wins and losses. It's cool to say we're looking at the underlying stats. We're looking at why we are 10 games over 500. We want to really understand, is this real or not real? We'd love to know at 15 games under 500 whether we have a run in front of us. And we're going to look to the analytics to say, it would appear to us that in the next 17 days, we will have a streak where we would expect to win 12 out of the next 15 games. You all love doing that. There's a bunch of stat nerds who sit in the corner who love doing that. But in the real world, we do not do that. I promise you. We will discuss what we need to have happen if we're going to do X or Y, where we need to be in the standings if we're going to sell or buy or stand pat, what we need to do in the next week or two. We're a month and 6 days from the trade deadline. The Marlins are not sitting around right now saying, hey, now we're going to start making trades because we're this injured. They looked at where they were a month ago, and they knew what their deadline philosophy was going to be. The worst case scenario is when you identify players you want to trade and then those players get hurt. Luzardo may or may not have been such a player, identified as someone they wanted to trade. There's tons of rumors going around. But the front office knows. You don't know. We don't know. When you're not in it, you don't know. Luzardo, the decision to trade Luzardo was made long ago. Then when an injury pops up and gets in the way of your plans, it stinks. Because when you know the assets that you are trading or the assets you're willing to trade when you're in a buy mode, you have meetings and plans. You're looking at your system. You're looking at your major league team this year. You're looking at your major league team next year. You have all these plans in place and injuries blow them up. Lack of performance doesn't. You'd be shocked to know. Injuries way more so. Then when injuries happen, what upset me is that the fans and the media would tell us what player transactions, who we're going to call up, and it's happened in Miami. Why aren't you calling up Max Meyer? He was so good. This whole season went to crap the minute you sent him down. Remember that pitcher? I did a whole wait to see. What was the date of that wait to see? Wait to see when we tell you something's going to happen, and we'll tell you how we did. Like J.J. Redick's going to be hired as the Lakers. Yes. I told you Max Meyer would be called up again before June 15th. Well, I decided to wait till June 24th, just in case, especially with these injuries. Max Meyer, a very, very good young pitcher who had a great run at the big leagues this year. When he was sent out on April 16th, I said, he'll be back in 2 months. You'll get the service time back. It'll all be good. It didn't occur to me he'd stink so badly in AAA. Just terrible. 10 starts with a 6.23 earned run average. Still has not pitched past the fourth inning. That's because they're watching his innings and monitoring his innings. But I got it wrong. When players get hurt, there's all these articles that come out and all these tweets where they tell you exactly who we're supposed to call up next. You know that the front office has a list. It's not based on the media or based on the fans. It's based on options. It's based on salary. It's based on what our daily service time plan was for a particular player. We're supposed to say, if you go down to AAA and you hit for average and for power, you'll be back up in a jiffy. We'd like you to go down to AAA and we'd like you to work just a little bit on your breaking ball. We'd like you to really work on your command as well. If you could get your walks down, we'll have you back up here in a snap. Then they go to the minor leagues and we don't talk about that again because we know why we sent them to the minor leagues. If there's the following injuries, here's the list in order of which we'll bring people back. There is no level of performance that will change our plan that we have already set. I just thought you should know that. It's sort of like the plan that we have for acquiring players. It's sort of like the plan we have when we're releasing players, designating players. We have it in our mind. We have days in our mind when we're going to do it, firing managers. There's a day that's not in anybody's mind currently, and that's the day to re-sign and give Trevor Bauer a chance in the big leagues. I got to tell you a story about Trevor Bauer that's going on because it's fascinating, and somebody actually asked me a question about it. Coca?
You know what I want? I want to talk to Samson.
So you want to talk to Samson? Get into my X. Twitter, @DavidP. DMs are open. David P. Samson on Instagram. David Samson Podcast. You can email me, and I will see almost everything you send. I can't respond to all of them, but I love some of these questions, and it may make the show. I'd love for you to talk about this take because I think it's horse hockey. That's not even a question. That's a declarative statement without any mention of my name. However, the other way to make the show is when you put something in front of me that I want to put in the show anyway. You then included a tweet by Bill James. Bill James sent something that was magically delicious. Quote, Bill James, the father of sabermetrics and analytics. Bill James, the totally interestingly eccentric man, very, very famous, worked for the Red Sox for a while. All of Moneyball, Bill James, anybody? Stats. The reason why that you're a 34-year-old GM right now is Bill James. The reason why you're a 56-year-old unemployed baseball person, Bill James. The reason why Brad Pitt and Billy Beane are somehow conflated, Bill James, that guy. Well, it turns out Bill James has decided to take a new path later in life. It's the path of Jack Lemmon and Walter Matthau. That may be an old movie reference. I was just picturing Sarah thinking to herself, there's no way that David thinks I know what grumpy old men is. There's just no way. Well, I don't lose faith in you, Sarah. That is a grumpy old man reference. Bill James is a grumpy old man, and he sent a tweet that said, MLB may now be in a position where if they don't actively encourage someone to sign Trevor Bauer, they could be setting themselves up to lose a $1 billion lawsuit. No, they're not. They're both not going to actively encourage anyone to sign Trevor Bauer. That's number one. Number two, there is no cause of action that Trevor Bauer has. There is no God-given right to be a Major League Baseball player or to be signed by one of 30 teams. I don't care what your ERA is in the California Penal League or the Mexican Beer League. Don't care. I love the cute picture of you and your agent after you struck out 19 people in the Mexican League. It must be hard to get Robinson Cano. That must be a tough out. TOUGH. Hey, hold my needle. What right would you sue under? Tortious interference with a contract? Taking away my ability to earn a living? You're earning a living right now. You're getting paid in the Mexican League. Hold on, let me think about it. Unlawful prosecution. No, not that. Lack of ability to cohabitate. No. Oh, of course. Emotional distress. I can hardly look at myself in the mirror because I'm not a big league pitcher. I'm a disaster, a total wreck. Give me $1 billion. Even Mike Myers is laughing at that. Not the horror guy. I just realized again, that's twice in a show. Has anyone heard of Austin Powers? Trevor Bauer responded on Twitter saying, I'd really prefer not to go this route, but if I continue being kept out of baseball as I currently am, I may have no other choice. Let's hope it doesn't come to that, and I'm allowed to return to my career that was taken from me over provably false allegations that never held any merit to begin with. You're right. It has nothing to do with you and Terry Francona. It has nothing to do with you in the clubhouse. It has nothing to do with the fact that not one person wants to play with you and not one front office wants to have you. It has nothing to do with any of that. You're right. It's totally about your preferences in the bedroom. Give me a break. Sorry, Bill James, you're wrong. Sorry, Trevor Bauer, you're wrong too. I told you years ago, and I'll keep telling you until I'm blue in the face. And I'm not a big fat liar. Trevor Bauer will never pitch another inning in Major League Baseball. Never. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, I've got a documentary to review, and something happened in baseball that I promised was going to happen, and I am despondent that it did. We'll talk about that after the break. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. Today is Monday, 62424. Do you feel the spirit? I wish I had a better voice. Can you feel the spirit? That is a Springsteen reference, but also a St. Louis reference. The spirit of St. Louis. If you think that you're going to go to a live show in St. Louis and you're not going to hear me talk about George Clooney and Anna Kendrick, then you've got another thing coming. I watched a documentary this weekend. I watched a bunch of things this weekend, Coca. I mean, we need to do 10 shows with all the things I have ready queued up to review. I'm going to start with a documentary on Netflix called Tell Them You Love Me. Have you ever heard of facilitated communication for those with cerebral palsy who use some sort of keyboard and guided Ouija board type stuff to move your hand around to say, oh, you love me. Oh, you want broccoli. Oh, you want to go to a school dance. There's a documentary about a professor who believes in facilitated communication, who facilitated some communication with a young man who has cerebral palsy. And all of a sudden, it was a Chuck Woolery situation, a total love connection. And the family thought, this seems strange. And then before you know it, she's in prison. Spoiler alert. Knowing that doesn't take away the fact that you have to watch this documentary. And the reason that I say that is when you have an opportunity to learn something, you should learn it. I learned a lot. I didn't know what facilitated communication was. I did not know the story of what took place with this professor and this person. I was not aware of any of it, and now I am. And it got me thinking. And I hope that it gets you feeling the same way. The thinking part is how badly do you make something happen and see something that's not there because you so badly want it to be there? You hear me during my show talk about confirmation bias. That's all it is. Confirmation bias is the exact concept. Ouija boards, that's what that is. Facilitated communication, in theory, that's what that is. Willing something into existence. France, Coca. Killed me. Absolutely killed me. We sat around for years. It was more than months. It had to be years. Sat around talking about instant replay in baseball. Sat around talking about why, how it was going to work, what the rules were, what should be reviewable, what shouldn't. There's an entire book in every dugout, in every GM box, and in every owner's box, president's box, of what you can review and what's not reviewable. There's like a guide. You have to learn it, but you still keep it with you because things come up all the time. Hey, can we review that? And umpires have to have it memorized. I love the fact, and I was not on the popular side of this issue. If we have instant review, instant replay, aren't we trying to get every play right, every call right, even if it's by a millimeter? And I'm thinking about the Game 6 goal that got nullified by replay in hockey, where there was the Marlins. The Panthers were offsides by a hair of my unshaved chinny chin chin. Thinking about when you're stealing second base and you're off the bag for a quarter of a second and you keep the tag applied. Hey, we teach infielders keep the tag applied. We teach runners don't disengage the bag. It's the rule. Don't complain to me. Offsides, you can't be over the blue line before the puck. It's a rule. It doesn't matter if it's by a hair or if it's by a foot or if it's by a yard. It doesn't matter. Offsides is offsides. It's binary. You're either out or you're safe. It's binary. I was always in favor of everything is reviewable, and I want it done fast as possible. We're not talking about murder convictions here. You get one of them wrong on replay, you get one of them wrong, but the dream, of course, is tennis where you see the ball on the line, it's either on the line or not. Then you sit around talking about other types of rules that are not replay related and impacts they'll have on the game. And I'm referring about the pitch clock in baseball, which is a rule that has been one that we wanted for decades. Decades. Get these games over faster. No one wants 3.5-hour games. Oh, don't be ridiculous, the old-time baseball people said. People love it. They don't complain about it when they're at a 6-5, 15-inning game. Wrong. They do. Oh, networks love it. Wrong. They don't. So the pitch clock comes into being, and we said one thing. Do not, this is what the umpires are told, enforce the pitch clock, but do not change a game over it. We don't want that. Of course, publicly, here's what we're going to say. The umpires have a game to call. When there is a pass interference on the final drive of the Super Bowl, there's a pass interference in the end zone on the final drive of the Super Bowl. When there's a holding call, there's a holding call. When there's a strike, there's a strike. When there's a foul in the paint, there's a foul in the paint. It's absolutely not accurate. There are human beings who are calling these games, and the situation does often dictate whether you swallow your whistle or not. Of course, publicly, it's always said, hey, we got to make the call, we got to make the call, we got to make the call. The Colorado Rockies won a baseball game on a pitch clock violation this weekend, and I am livid. That is not what we intended for the pitch clock. There is a level of discretion that the umpire has, and they've got to use. I understand that umpires want to be black and white, binary. That's a violation. Call it. It's not my fault that there's bases loaded in the bottom of the ninth, and it's not my fault that the pitch clock violation happens with 3 balls. A pitch clock violation is a ball. If the pitcher's not ready, that's 4 balls. They're on first. That means the runner scores. Game over. See you later. Not my issue. That's not true. Umpires, referees, they know the point of the game they're in. They know the game situation. It's like when an umpire would say, oh, I didn't realize that there was a milestone happening in this game. Of course you do. We tell you before the game starts, just in case you forgot. Every umpire knows what's going on in a particular game at a particular time, pre-game, during the game. We never wanted pitch clock violations to do this. And when the pitch clock was announced and Rob Manfred is getting the credit he deserves for spearheading something that has changed baseball in a more meaningful way than it had changed in the decades prior, with one exception, and that is adding the wild card, Commissioner Seelig. You know that we made it clear that with pitch clock violations, just make sure that there's no game decided on it. And for the argument that some people proffered, well, when you do a pitch clock violation with the bases loaded in the 6th inning and a run scored, that could be the deciding run. Don't give me that. Don't give me the thing that I agree with, which is, hey, game in April is as important as a game in September. I get all that. But if you don't see a difference between a pitch clock violation in the 9th inning versus the 6th inning, I can't even help you. I can't even help you. Do you think the Mets are told to use sticky stuff, Coca, your team? I think they've had 3 sticky stuff suspensions. Edwin Diaz, that overpaid, outstanding closer. What's that trumpet? See, if we were a much higher produced with a bigger budget. You know what you'd be doing right now? You'd press some sort of button and out would go the do. I don't think that's the exact Edwin Diaz horns that he comes out to, but it's something like that. He was ejected last night from the game against the Cubs. Guess what? He's going to get suspended 10 games today. You're all going to complain, saying Edwin Diaz, after the game, said, "What are you talking about? It was rosin and dirt." For the last time, for all players watching and for all the clubhouses who watch Nothing Personal, hear me now and listen to me later. The rule on sticky stuff is that it can't be sticky. You don't get a pass because of the ingredients. It's like, picture yourself living in a consequentialist world. When the umpire looks at you and says, "Man, that's some sticky stuff," that's 10 games. It's done. It's sort of like saying, "You know, I really want a baby. I hope you feel for me. All I did is want a baby. I'm so sorry that I took steroids. I didn't mean to." How do you think the Blue Jays front office is reacting to Martinez, who got suspended 80 games yesterday, and he released a statement through the union? "We've been trying for 10 years to have a baby, and I got medicine from my doctor in the Dominican, and all of a sudden I tested positive. I'm so sorry." I'm laughing. Do you know why I'm laughing? Because it's such bull crap. Players know what they're putting in their body. They just do. You think you start some sort of drug and you don't talk to anybody? Of course you do. Just now, after 10 years of trying, he said, "No, now I'm going to try a new medicine." Just now. This is the perfect time to ingest a new fertility medicine. I really don't want to comment on other people's sexual habits, but I am pretty good at math. And the old hyperbole part of the statement, can we show that, Coca? Is there any way the union is really behind a statement where a 22-year-old kid wants you to believe that he's been trying to have a family for 10 years? Hold on, let me do the math. That's my kind of guy at 12 trying to have a family. Come on. Robinson Cano, "I've got a terrible tummy ache. I thought it was diarrhea medicine." That wasn't me shooting it in my butt. Don't know how that got in there. I had a cold. We've heard it all. You're taking performance-enhanced drugs, and now you're out for 80 games because you are cheating. The good news is the statement said he's only been trying to have a kid for the past 2 years, which means it's only since he's 20, not he's 12, which is nice. I exaggerated. I got overexcited. Overexcitement leads to tears. It was 2 years, not 10 years. I thought it was 10 years. I could have sworn he said, "I've been trying to have a kid for 10 years. Nothing personal pick of the day. Can we talk about the Rickwood game? Can we talk about Bill Greason? Can we talk about the job that Major League Baseball did? If you did not watch the game at Rickwood Field, please go find it on YouTube, find it on MLB.com. Look at the pregame show. Please find a way to see the interview with Bill Greason, a 99-year-old former pitcher for the Negro Leagues, in the Negro Leagues. Please recognize the work that goes in, not just the money, the work, the blood, sweat, and tears to putting a game like that on. 8,000 people at a field that's been around since before Fenway, before Wrigley. Happens to be that Willie Mays, who was going to be honored at this game, died a few days before, which made the stencil in the field, 24, was stenciled into the field. It was such an emotional game and so important. And this is not by accident. What baseball is doing, trying to increase African-American participation in the game, the first ever all-black umpire crew, none of this was a coincidence, and it was all tone perfect. You can debate all you want about Major League records and should the Negro Leagues be incorporated, should they not. We could debate whether Fox knew what Reggie Jackson was going to do when he told the story of the racism that he found. You've heard me talk about Hank Aaron, the racism he found. Was Reggie Jackson the right conduit for those sentiments on Fox? Was he not? You can debate all of that. It doesn't even bother me when there are people who debate these issues, when there are people who say these one-off games are bad. We don't like it. It's not good. The team doesn't like it. The players don't like it. You can't dispute how good it feels to at least learn a little bit about history. I don't care. I don't want to say that. 4869. I do care if you're racist because it's live and let live. That's my philosophy. But who doesn't want to learn something? Baseball is historical. Congratulations, MLB. I thought the Giants would beat the Cards at Rickwood because Willie Mays. They didn't. We're 81-95 in our nothing personal pick of the day. That is BA-triple-D. I don't know what's going on. Tonight's pick of the day is actually 2 picks. Today is Patrick Corbin Day. The Padres are minus 218 over the Nationals. The Nationals and the Padres have pretty close to the same record. The Nationals are one of the great surprise teams of baseball so far as we finish up June. But we go against Corbin. When we have a show, we're going against Corbin. The other pick of the day today is Game 7 of the Stanley Cup. I would like to point out that I can't lose tonight because my pick of the day is the Oilers, who are slight underdogs at minus 108. The Panthers are minus 112. I'm choosing the Oilers to finish the comeback because if I'm wrong, the Panthers win the Stanley Cup. And if I'm right, I win the pick of the day. That makes me a winner chicken dinner. I never like the idea of betting on the team you love because yeah, I get it. You can multiply your pleasure, but you can also multiply your pain. Tonight, there will be pleasure. Now, I grant you there's going to be pain too, definitionally. If I lose the pick of the day, I'll be upset. What a Game 7. I really hope that you are going to watch that. I am rooting for overtime in Game 7, which I've told you, and Coke and I had a bit of a disagreement prior to the show today during our prep for the show, where I'm a bandwagon Panthers guy, I'm a bandwagon hockey guy. I don't know about you, for all the people listening, and for the number of you who have been here from the beginning, back in 2019. I have said that Game 7 of a Stanley Cup playoff series is the most exciting Game 7 there is. And then I said Game 7 overtime is it. There is nothing greater in all of sports. I don't care what the sport is. I don't care if it's me winning a World Series or me finishing an Ironman. I don't care what it is. Game 7 Stanley Cup Finals overtime in hockey? I am going to DraftKings. This isn't even sponsored. You're welcome, DraftKings. It is plus 270 to go to overtime. How is that not worth it? What would be more exciting than a Game 7 overtime? That is what I'm rooting for. It'll make us a little more tired tomorrow, and tomorrow's a long day because tomorrow morning we're doing a show live. Then tomorrow night we're doing a show live in St. Louis. And then Wednesday morning, I'll be right back in this chair doing a live show at 8 a.m. You got to want it. And I do. I really do. Don't go to bed early tonight. Can we make that a pick of the day, Coca? We're going to do that for I'm doing it. I'm doing it. We're taking plus 270 for the Oilers-Panthers game to go to overtime. I just want to, that is one way that we can start getting some back. We're going to do a unit on that. So we've got the Oilers over the Panthers, the Padres over the Nationals, and then we've got the Oilers-Panthers going to OT. I'm excited. Just think about it. I'm going to start prepping after this show. I'm going to listen to LeBatard, watch LeBatard on the DraftKings Network. Then I'm going to go running, try to sort of get a good sweat in, then finish preparing for the St. Louis show and the show tomorrow. But always in the back of my mind, counting down toward 8 p.m. Eastern. Yes. Okay. What else do I have to get through? Okay. Do we have time to even talk about what happened with the Yankees? They lost their 3rd straight series and Stanton got hurt. And I have a wait to see that Stanton's going to play more than 120 games. And now he just said he's missing 4 weeks, which could be about 30 games. So there's still a chance, but he's already missed 10, which means I'm going to lose that weight to see. And all of you are going to complain about the fact that he's got tight muscles and the weight loss didn't matter. Believe me, he doesn't want to be hurt. We don't have time to talk about that. I'll tell you what I have time for. To say it's just business. Enjoy the game tonight. Let's go OT. This is nothing personal.